Everyone's first time should be like this. Yo, what's up? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Arminius off Earwood. When this happened, 2009. The substances used: morning glories, tobacco, and ibuprofen. At a dose of 240 seeds. The route of administration: orally. Gender: male. Weight: 200 pounds. First prior experience: alcohol and cannabis. And the setting: at home. Alright, so here we have a report introducing morning glory seeds, which this isn't the first report. I believe we do have a report of this up on the Patreon, and I think we did cover this in a combination at some point. But this video is the first official one where we'll break it down, as you guys did vote for this next. Now if you don't know, morning glory seeds are known for being a naturally occurring psychoactive psychedelic. Most commonly you'll hear about the substance LSA being the active compound, but it's possible some others may be playing a role. Notably another lysergamide called LSH. Now we have a whole report on LSH where we break it down, but to keep it simple, it may be similar to LSD in effects, while LSA may be more similar to mushrooms. And if I were to guess, this report is more LSA dominant, which we'll get into why I think that, and more about these compounds and others after the report. But this is a really good one in description, one I'm sure you'll enjoy. So without further ado, let's dive right into this. One day I was talking online to a friend of mine a few towns away, who's quite the hippie type. We had countless nights of rampant alcohol consumption together and half a dozen times smoking marijuana, often in conjunction with the alcohol, but nothing else. He had tried mushrooms and LSD before, though I hadn't, and I was itching to try something out. I was curious, and I had an appetite for something new. So over our online conversation, he revealed to me his great new idea that he had tried a couple times, and this idea was morning glory seeds. He recommended to me that I shoplift a couple packs, and therefore get a free trip. Count out exactly 250, crush them as finely as possible, mix them with applesauce, and eat them around 4 p.m. for an ideal evening experience. I procrastinated probably a month until I got around to getting the seeds. I went down to the local Lowe's and bought 4 packs, each containing 1.5 grams of seeds according to the label. Not being a debt shoplifter by any means, I happily coughed out the $8 or so that the 4 packs cost me. He had recommended to me that I buy some marijuana just in case I get nauseous. However, being the broke and impatient bastard that I am, I simply went ahead with my plans the next day without any weed. I opened the packets and dumped the seeds onto my desk. I attempted to count them, losing count a few times, but I can safely estimate that I had between 230 and 240 seeds, close enough to what I wanted for me to be satisfied. I put all the seeds in a pasta strainer, a fine mesh one, small enough for them not to fall through, and washed them twice in my sink using degreasing dish detergent. This was to remove any pesticides or chemicals that some seed companies use to deter kids from doing exactly what I was about to do. After thoroughly washing the seeds and letting them dry, I set about as how to crush them. I do not own a coffee grinder, and I wish I did. This would be by far the most easy and effective method of crushing the seeds. What I ended up doing was double bagging the seeds in a Ziploc baggie, double bagged in case the inner bag ripped, and then hitting them vigorously with a hammer. This was surprisingly effective. I was left with a crunchy, crumbly, powdery substance that looked like some obscene ice cream topping. I ate a bowl of ramen noodles an hour and a half before ingesting the seeds, and then mixed them with a bowl of applesauce. I ate it, and everything went down pleasantly. The applesauce was more than a perfect mixer, and I was not bothered by any bad taste. I then casually took a shower and proceeded to mill around in my room, waiting for the effects to set in. I would like to state that in the course of this entire event, I never experienced the type of nausea that I have heard described in so many morning glory stories. Aside from a very mild sensation of slight stomach discomfort, which I felt a little more than an hour and a half after ingesting the seeds, I did not suffer at all, and at no time was I even remotely close to vomiting, although this may be attributed to my relatively low dosage. The first phase of the morning glory experience is the wait, and it's also the phase that sucks the most. I was honestly expecting something close to a full-on acid trip with vivid hallucinations and delusions, etc., etc. And as such, I was very excited and giddy for the whole thing to begin. I have heard it described to me that mushrooms, being absorbed through your digestive tract, as opposed to smoked, have a tendency to hit in a fashion such as nothing, nothing, nothing. Holy shit. Morning glory seeds are not this way. I was not hit by a brick wall of fucked upness, or at least not in the dosage that I consumed. The onset was very slow and gradual, though it was undeniable. About an hour and a half after consumption, I felt the first effects kicking in. The onset is the second phase of my experience, the first true phase of my trip, so to speak, I suppose. It is a very mellow thing. I noticed myself becoming extremely relaxed and sedated, with a slight warm tingly sensation in my body, which was the start of a physical high that continued building itself up for the next hour and a half. About 45 minutes after the onset began, I found my thoughts becoming increasingly strange, in noticeable ways. My dad called out to me to help him take some groceries inside. This was unpleasant as I felt physically sedated, though not overpoweringly awful. My speech became slightly jumbled and confused, although I doubt my dad noticed. After this was done, I went inside and talked to another friend on the computer. My state gave me many conversational insights, and I felt way more immersed in our intellectual conversation than I feel I would have been normally. The trip, per se, was nothing like I expected. I did not have any visual hallucinations or even auditory ones. There were some cool closed eye visuals that I experienced, but the main attraction was the mental trip, so to speak. My train of thought became very fucked up and offbeat. For example, on the side of a package of Healthy Choice soup cans in my kitchen, it said, "It's all about the choices we make." I became quite fixated on this and thought of it as the secret to life and living. I analyzed my life and compared different aspects of it to elements of Greek tragedy. Every 2 minutes, I had some type of bizarre personal revelation. This was quite amusing, to say the least. My perceptions for the most part were unaffected, which was a massive contrast to marijuana and alcohol. My vision did have a slight change, with the field of red dots in my peripherals, but this dissipated if I focused on it. My hearing, I think, was more sensitive during my experience, as loud noises were much more agitating than they would have been normally. The lack of perceptual changes did not discourage me though, because I can see that my train of thought was that of an insane person. However, not to give out any misconceptions, I was not stupid at any point. I never thought I could fly, light myself on fire and live, or anything like that. I was simply overanalyzing mundane things with an erratic train of thought. My third phase was the peak, and to be honest, I'm not sure exactly when that occurred. The entire intoxication process of the seeds is so slow that it's hard to pinpoint exactly when I was at the top. At some point right before the time around which I peaked, I went outside to smoke a cigarette. This gave me a moderately severe headache, which I then took one ibuprofen tablet for. This was the only other substance aside from food that I consumed at any point during the entirety of my experience. About 4 hours after consuming the seeds, sometime around my peak, I had a dinner of noodles and Alfredo sauce with homemade garlic bread and water. At no time did any of this food cause any nausea, although stabbing the noodles with my fork proved slightly more difficult than normal. The coming down phase was the exact same as the coming up phase, except the inverse. It took approximately 8 hours for the effects to completely wear off. Although 6 hours after ingesting the seeds, I was for all intents and purposes sober, although not quite baseline. I also feel that when coming down, the physical high wore off, and instead the mental offbeatness was dominant. I composed myself to meditation with lit candles and incense at about the 6-hour mark. Although I had come far down, some of the closed eye visuals and sensations I had were pretty intense, and I ended up wishing I had done that closer to my peak. At the 7.5-hour mark, I was tired and decided to go to sleep. In the morning, I was refreshed and in no way felt burnt out as with marijuana. In conclusion, I have decided that this was a very successful first experience with morning glory seeds, and I think everyone's first experience should be like this. Although I did not mind it, I can easily see the erratic train of thought becoming uncomfortable for many people. At the dosage I had, I could always make it stop if I wanted to. I more or less embraced it. I think about 250 seeds was a good trial dose to see if the seeds were my thing or not. The advantage is, as if someone was trying alcohol for the first time and then laid down and got the spins, didn't like the spins, and then was able to make it stop at will. Those of you who have experienced the spins while laying down drunk know that unfortunately there's no way to really make those stop. But with the effects of the morning glory seeds, I could, or at least at the dose I took. Next time I plan to increase the dosage to 350 to 400 seeds, and take them in a social setting with friends. Alright, that was a good report. I mainly want to focus on the morning glories for this section, as we haven't talked about them like that yet. These seeds are native to Mexico and Latin America, and has been thought to have been used for centuries culturally, especially among the Aztecs and Native Americans. It would be used as a psychedelic to help one achieve spiritual growth, or for other shamanic practices. There's a good chunk of history with this substance, and a lot going on with it. Now, I said earlier, many people bring out the substance LSA as being the main alkaloid at play when it comes to these seeds. At least that's what I think the general conception is now. But really, there's a handful of alkaloids that may be at play here. LSH is one of those that's also a lysergamide, but there is another one that's very similar in structure called ergometrine. Ergometrine is actually prescribed as a medication during and after pregnancy. The doses they use medically are nowhere near where they need to be to produce a psychedelic effect though, but it has been noted to have activity with the 5-HT2 receptors. And some batches of morning glories could possibly have a strong concentration of this, which if this is the case, not only can it help better explain the psychedelic experience, but it can also help explain some of the side effects you get from taking these seeds. As in higher doses, ergometrine has been linked to nausea and abdominal pain as well. Also some potential dangers concerning its impact on blood circulation, which I wouldn't doubt at the right dose, with the right individual, this could be deadly in some cases. Or another example, there's another alkaloid called chanoclovine that has been found to be strongly concentrated in some versions of morning glory. And this substance has demonstrated activity with dopamine receptors in mice. But the point is, morning glory seeds aren't just ergin, LSA. These other alkaloids could be playing a role in the experience easily, and at times, they very well could be leading the experience. But it's going to depend on the concentration of alkaloids, which with any given plant, it's pretty much going to be impossible to find out without an analysis. Some species may have stronger concentrations compared to others, but more research needs to be done to really clarify this. And also I did want to point this out because not all experiences with seeds tend to follow up with LSA's profile effects. LSA itself has been noted to come with sedation and not be super visual itself. But the thing is, you can find reports where the experience seems to contradict this, extremely in some cases. I recommend you check out the report, I Am Everything, Eyes, Shamans, Dimensions, and Alien Surgery, to just see how strong I'm talking. It's pretty amazing to see that a lysergamide is able to produce such a powerful experience, comparable to that of a high dose of mushrooms or even DMT in visual content. Then if we take a look at synthetic LSA, like in Teakle for example by Alexander Shulgin, we can see the psychedelic effects are pretty mild. So I do feel like these other alkaloids can be playing a huge role in some experiences and plants. So because of these reasons, I'm sure you can better see how these seeds this user took was most likely LSA dominant, as it was mainly a mental trip with some notes on physical impacts. But coming to understand the plant better like this, trying to understand more of what it contains, we'll get a better look at how this experience unfolds and why some of these effects occur. Like for example, another adverse effect that's reported with the seeds can be vasoconstriction. That is, the constriction of the blood vessels, which can be pretty uncomfortable at times. But I wouldn't doubt that some of the other alkaloids besides LSA is contributing to this effect. So these are just things to be aware of. But we're going to end it there for today. This was only the first look at morning glories, and there's a lot more behind it than what I presented here today. But if you enjoyed this video and want to see more on morning glories or anything else at all, let me know down below in the comments. Make sure to catch the next vote. Subscribe and like the video if you haven't already. Follow the socials, send in a report, join the Discord, and check out more in the description below. It's been Someone That's Someone. I'm excited for what's coming up. More bangers as always, so stay tuned. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.